So, all right, let's do the demo. Got a good turnout tonight. Happy with this. Shamus, glad to see you. Okay, we're going to be turning. Take off jewelry, right? Make sure you got your rings off and that kind of thing. Make sure you got face protection. I just got back from my job at the meatpacking company. You see. I had blue smocks. Who's talking? I got a couple pet peeves. One of them I like want to have one meeting. Okay, so please don't interrupt by having side conversations. So I've got these blue smocks also, but they have pockets in them, and they fill up with sawdust really quick. So I bought these. It's got tight sleeve. What's my other pet peeve if we're turning? Everybody who knows me, if you're turning something round, if you're putting a piece of wood in here, got to make a tenon. Got to make a tenon. All right, so I don't know about you, but I gave you an opportunity to go look at a bunch of YouTube videos, and I don't know, I probably looked at a dozen or so over the last month. And so I went back to the Jimmy DiResta one, and he did something like this where he did the grains running in this direction and its bowl orientation of this. So this is matching end grain with face grain. But when he did that, he had this smaller piece chucked up against the jaws of the chuck. Like, oh, Jimmy, yeah, he actually made about 10 mistakes throughout that demo, but it came out nice eventually. And he made this. So I made this afternoon just to practice. If you're going to be doing a demonstration, you really ought to practice it ahead of time. Demonstrations is probably 75% talking and 25% actually doing. Okay, so I just thought this was a really cool design. So that's it. I asked my wife right away, I said, what are you going to do with this? What can you do with this? She goes, absolutely nothing. Said, thanks, honey. That's great, honey. Thanks. So how about flour or rice or something like that? Yeah, I guess. She had a really good idea. She goes, it's got to be measured out perfect. I said, how am I? That's right. Yeah, see, women would think that Woodturners don't. So she gave me a good idea. Yes, okay. So she says, fill it with water and then pour it into measuring cups, and now we know how to do it. I said, Jesus, no wonder I married her, smart girl. So, all right. So, okay, if we're going to be turning, and we're going to be turning in a spindle orientation, what do you always do? Use tailstock support whenever you can, right? Always use tailstock support. Always put a tenon on there. I don't really think anything's going to fly off the lathe on this demonstration, but the next one might be. So that's why we got this up here. So would you use a spindle roughing gouge on a bowl like this, in a bowl orientation? Is that a good safety thing? No. You would never use a bowl gouge on a bowl orientation, right? So this is a serious one, but if you have a spindle roughing gouge, you never use it on a bowl. Okay, it's very dangerous, and there's videos online of people that have done that for demonstration purposes, and the wood shatters apart. So we'll use that a little bit later when we do the spindle, but for right now, I'm just going to turn the bolts. I'm turning the cup. This particular project I think is really cool. Not only because I made it, but this gives you practice with bowls and spindles in the same. So mortar and pestle would be another project that's using bowls and spindle. Okay, so let's get this thing round first. Come on, get it round. Start slow. Oh. Okay. So right now, whenever I'm showing people how to turn, what I usually like to do is make sure that your feet are facing parallel with the bed, and bring your body up, bring the tool in a 45, 45, 45 type of direction. So right now I've got a 45 degrees going this way, 45 degrees this way, and my tool is totally open, right? So that orientation is totally open, that orientation is totally closed. So if you're going to be doing this, come down about 45, come over about 45, and roll the tool about halfway. Okay, and that's the proper orientation in order to bring the tool into the wood. Okay. What I like to do is start leaning to the right, and I'm going to start moving to the left. Are we round? I'm not round yet. Whenever I'm giving instruction to new students, for some reason, they want to twist their body, and you don't twist your body. It's really a lot of aerobic exercise, just shifting left and right. Okay. So now that I'm round, I want to start making the shape of the cup. And so basically, I'm rolling a bead. When you're rolling a bead, basically what you want to be doing, can you see, Alan, right here? Oh, you can. Oh, that's really good. Come on. Always turn the lathe off if you're going to be adjusting things. You see, if you're going to roll a bead, start with the bevel kind of in the middle, and we're going to be raising the handle and turning the handle at the same time into that 45-degree position. Okay. If you want, you can smooth out a little bit with your carbide tools. When you use your carbide tools, make sure that this flat part stays flat on the rest. You don't tilt it to the right. You don't tilt it to the right. You don't tilt it the handle down. You don't tilt it up. Just stays parallel. It should be around center, right around center. Okay. Now I've got to start forming the bottom of this. In order to do that, I got to make some clearance. I'm going to use my parting tool. This is that Sapelli mahogany that we've had. Okay, now before I get too far into that, I want to make sure this is still strong. So I'm going to switch over to drilling some of this out. I don't want to hollow all of it. Shit. Let's see. What's the old knockout bar? Mm. Uh-oh. Bob, this is supposed to come out. Oh, it did. Hey, Bob, do you know the history of this lathe? When we got it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I don't want to drill. I don't want to make a funnel, so I'm going to try to determine how deep I got to go. And it's right about there. I always like demonstrating that a lathe is also a horizontal boring machine. It's a horizontal drill press. Okay. So I've got my Jacobs chuck, and I'm going to drill in roughly about 2 inches. When you drill slow. When you sand, you go slow. When you color, you go slow. When you turn, you go fast. When you use the Jacobs chuck, the quilt tends to want to, the Morse taper tends to want to spin around in the quill. So I hold on to that nice and tight. So has everybody done that? Let's see. Thought I brought it. So a trick, if you ever have done that, sometimes that'll scream like crazy, right? So I've already pre-waxed this. You put a little bit of Johnson's paste wax, if you can find it. So I guess any other type of wax probably would work. It won't scream as much. That's a little trick of the trade. What? They're like $70 or $80 on eBay now. When they discontinued it 2 years ago, I I was lucky enough to buy. I bought 3 cans for $30. I've seen it up to $150. Yeah, that's a lot. But of course, somebody just spent $6.5 million for a banana, right? They, they hate it. Did they really? Oh my God, the stupidity is incredible. Save me, save me, save me.
I'm muted. How you doing?
Okay.
All right, so now I got to hollow this out. So this is just going to be regular bowl turning at this point.
Making
Just
those.
making the,
So when I turn bowls, this is a little bit too tall. I've seen different people do it a whole bunch of different ways. The way I like doing it is starting in the center, usually with a straight arm over here, and I'll start carving out this way. I've seen people carve up, like start in the middle and carve their way out. And I used to do that when I first started turning, and it was almost a guaranteed catch if I did that. Okay, so I like, again, coming down 45, over 45, and rolling at 45, and coming in this way to do that scoop. Stop in the center. Let's see. I got a little depth gauge. All different types of depth gauges. Okay, I got to go a little deeper. Clear the tool rest. Lighting is terrible. In my shop, I've got a light here and another light here, so I can see what I'm doing. Use this again a little bit. Yeah. I'm trying to smooth it out a little bit, and I'm the angle that I'm getting. I'm starting to hit here, right, and I can come in at a different angle here and still get to be where I'm trying to be. I'm using a small round carbide tool, so that's not the regular ones. Carbide tools, if you don't know, these are the easy wood tools. A tool like this is close to 140 or 150 bucks just for one. I recently found out about a year and a half ago, you can buy a set of carbides on Amazon, 2 handles, a round, a square, a point, and a gooseneck tool for $70. And they work just as good. So if you're in the market, I would not recommend these anymore because you get a much better deal on Amazon. It's an off-brand. You know. Okay, everybody got a double calibers. Still real thick, still real thick, still real thick. Every time I'm sitting out there and this lathe is on, I think it's incredibly loud. Do you guys think it's really loud? I think it's the acoustics in the room and the machine. Okay. So I'm going to try to sneak up on that dimension. So, as usual, the bottom third is the thick part. So I always tell people when I'm teaching them, when you start getting nice and thin here, measure early and measure often. When you use this tool, do it flat. Use it flat on the tool rest. Okay? Don't put it at an angle like that because you get a false reading. If you're a bowl maker, this is an essential tool. Or maybe now that you're a spoon maker. How many people actually watched some videos on making spoons this month? I'm proud of you. That's nice of you. Okay, don't put your hands in there when it's spinning, obviously. Okay, still.
What kind of a surface does that carbide scraper leave, and what grit would you start sanding versus the outside?
I don't know. Probably it depends how I'm getting it pretty good. Probably around 120. Yeah.
I'm not putting a microphone in the audience, just repeat the questions.
Oh, okay. All right. What grit would I start sanding based on the finish that this is leaving? Right. So, all right. I want to do a little bit more of rounding the bottom before I start sanding. This throws a lot of dust, so that's why I got the vacuum tonight. All right, so now I got to part it. Just want to double check one thing. I think I'm close to the bottom. All right. Okay. So now I'm just going to part it off. These tools keep getting lost. This is a little tough to grab onto because that hole's in there. If that hole was bigger and this was spinning, your finger could go in there real easy. So I'm cautious not to do that. So I brought my handy dandy Japanese saw. Because last thing you want to do in a demonstration is hurt yourself. Demonstration should not include blood. No, that's not cool. I went to a demonstration last night and the guy bled all over the project. Okay. Let's see. So that's almost that part. You see, so that was pretty easy to do. All it is a tiny bowl. Huh? With a hole. It's a leaky bowl. Trick of the trade, if you can't get it off, use a lever. Use a lever. Anybody else show up on TV land? Because usually we have a dozen or so. Wow. Slow.
Gary, Keith, Michael, Eddie, and Russ.
Okay, you can use your Jacobs. So you can sand with these little foam things are great. You can also do one of these things. Oop, unlock it, Bob. I'm not particularly crazy about the dust from this sawdust. Let's see, here's the knockout bar. Okay, so let's do some spindle turning. Anybody got any questions about what we just did? Excuse me? The Jacobs check?
Repeat the question, please.
I didn't hear the question.
How did you set up that sanding?
Oh. Yeah, it's just one of the sanding. What was the sanding pad? This is just a regular Woodturners sanding pad. If you're a bolt turner, you got to have these. These come in different sizes. These go from everything from 1 inch up to about 3 or 4 inches. So this will, and whenever you're sanding, you know, or yeah, say if it's a bowler you're sanding, if you think this is a clock face, you got 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, right? When you're sanding, you always want to stay in the 6 to 9 o'clock position. That way the sawdust is, or the chips are flying down this way, versus if you were sanding and beginners want to do this for some reason. They want to sand between 12 and 1 o'clock, and they learn really quickly when you do that, all the sawdust is coming right in your face. So
What is holding the sanding?
it's just Velcro.
No, I mean
The Jacobs chuck?
yeah.
What don't you understand? It's a Morse taper. It's just called a Jacobs chuck. You don't have this yet? These are about $30. Yeah. You can actually take that out of your drill press. I wouldn't recommend keep taking it out of your drill press.
If you put in the tailstock, the wood's moving.
Okay, so let's do a little spindle turning. I got so many things out here. Did I put that little piece of wood out here? Oh, look in front of you, Bob. All right, I already put an X on here and put a little dimple with a center punch. I use a spring-loaded center punch. I like having a little dot there so I can line up the dots on the drive center and one on the live center. Make sure that's nice and locked in. Okay, so this tool rest is perfect for the size. So whenever you start anything, you ought to have some kind of design in mind, right? Like, what the heck am I going to be doing here? And what I want to do is, these are two other ones I had done a couple years ago. I really like these, and I'm going to mimic these spindles, these handles. Okay, so I got a bead, I got a couple grooves, and I got 2 beads. Okay, very simple. I think this is kind of elegant versus just one long taper. You know, it's nicer if you put a little bit extra value add if you're putting beads and coves and some other type of design. Okay, so now that we're all locked in, and I'm feeling comfortable that this is locked. Oops, that's just loosened it. All right. So again, make sure you're on the dots, all nice and stiff. Now I'm going to use my spindle roughing gouge. Again, don't ever use this on a bowl. Again, this is feet at shoulder width, moving back and forth in order to just make it round. This is my favorite sound that's coming up, especially when we're doing the craft shows. Because when we're doing it out there and we start making this racket, everybody in the audience goes, "What the heck is happening over at the New Jersey Woodturners?" Right? The cut always goes in the direction of the flute. I've seen people when they don't do that, they'll go in both directions. I don't particularly like that, mainly because you're not rubbing the bevel if you're going backwards. So some people do this, and it works, but it doesn't put you in practice to rub the bevel later on. Not quite round. So you notice if you look at my torso and my shoulders, they're pretty much staying in the same line. I'm just really shifting my weight back and forth. You get all the control that way versus standing over here and doing this. You're going to get a really rough cut when you do that. Quite honestly, right now I'm really not worried about rubbing the bevel because I'm just roughing. It's not really important that you get a good finish right now. So here's another handle I did. And I basically want to identify where my bead is, where my second bead is, and my third bead. I like doing this when the lathe is spinning. So there's my three main components of this particular handle. I went to give myself a relief. Do some here. I think if you're looking for Christmas presents, this is a really good one. Because as you can see, it doesn't take a long time, and it's a very attractive thing. Let's see. Okay, so again, rolling a bead. How do you roll a bead? Start at the center of the bead, raise the handle, and start with the flute totally open, finish with the flute totally closed. So it's a two-part thing. If it's tight bead, it's a three-part that you're actually turning the handle this way also. Watch. This is a small bowl gouge. Okay. I think bowl gouges work fine on spindles. Who asked that question? Oh, good. Yeah, thanks, Larry. Yeah, I'm really comfortable with bowl gouges as spindle gouges also. So I'm starting in the center of the bead. Myself a little clearance. Okay, and that's a bead. How long did it take? It was like 3 or 4 passes, right? Now I want to start on my taper. I'm going to come back to my spindle gouge, my spindle roughing gouge. Ow. Loud enough? It's hurting my ears. I'm going to finish this up a little bit with the skew. This is way more vibration than I'm expecting. Anybody understand why that much vibration is coming in? Because this is a nice solid piece of wood. I don't understand why we're getting that much. Yeah, I sharpened them before I got here. Okay.
Because it's long.
Long and skinny?
Yeah.
That might be it.
More pressure on the wood than the tool rest, you might get more vibration. But not to just bear down on the tool rest and help.
Oh yeah? Okay. So let's pretend you suck at making beads, right? So they do have beading tools, right? So this is a part of a 4-piece set from Penn State Industries, right? These are just different sizes, and this is a Packard Bell one. So small beads can be difficult. So I'm going to try that with this, mainly just to demonstrate it. Okay. I want a thicker bead on top. Ooh. That's annoying. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. Yeah. Yeah, I usually start low and come up on it. I think this piece of wood is just too thin. It's really not. It's just creating way too much noise. I don't want to be annoying, right? But that's usually how I use that tool. So now I'm going back to my bowl gouge. And I'm basically scraping this at this point. Okay, I want to clear out this little section. This is basically a cove at this point. I just had a design modification on my big bead. I want to do one more thing. I want to put a little bit of accent pieces on here. I'm just going to use a point tool. When you use a point tool, it's three-sided, three-faceted, and whenever you use a tool like this, you just have one of the facets straight up. You can twist it just a little bit. Try to get those evenly spaced. Now I'm going to do Bob Johnson's favorite design element. Where are you, Bob? Bob Johnson loves using the old hot wire. We'll see if we get the smoke detector going off. So you want to keep your hands nice and spread when you do this. You would certainly not want to wrap this around and turn this into a knuckle buster. So this is a real inexpensive way to put in some embellishment. Now typically when I do spindle projects, I use triple E polish and Mylons. But this is going to be a food item, so I'd rather put some oil on this later. I'm not going to do that tonight. So boom. What was that, 10 minutes? I got a nice handle. Very attractive handle, right? I need the part that goes inside the cup. So I'm going to use my handy dandy wrench in order to do this part. This is the part that's going to go in the cup. Wrenches are really good in order to get your diameters that you want to do, right? I like to choke up on this. And I got to part it off. By the way, I was sanding when the lathe was spinning. Whether I'm doing this, whenever you're doing this, always sand in the direction of the grain also, because all we're really doing initially, we're sanding across grain. You don't want to go against the grain, right? That counts in woodworking and in life. Don't go against the grain. Use a thin parting tool. Spindle. Okay, get the saw again. Clean it up. You cleaned it up on the little belt sander. Jesus. Whenever you do that, don't catch it with your palm. Catch it on the side. It can hurt otherwise. Don't ask me how I know that.
How do you know that?
It's happened, and those things are sharp. This is the one I just finished. Okay. So you can finish like this. Oops. Boom, you got a spoon. What do you think? Okay. The one I did earlier today, I didn't make the little tenon long enough. There's a little bit of a gap right there. I made this one a little bit longer on purpose, and I can go back later on and clean that up with a Dremel tool. This one. Yeah. I made the tenon a little bit too short on this first one. On the second one, I made the tenon longer, and after that's glued and dried, I'm going to go ahead and... Yes. I'm just going to use Type on 3. Yeah. I don't know if it's really going to see any moisture or not, if you're using flour or rice or something. Anyway, okay. What would you guys use this for? Besides flour and rice? Rice, flour, and rice. That's the only thing, right? You could use, it'd be a lot of coffee. Be a lot of coffee. But How about for attractiveness? That's a really pretty utensil, right? All right.